We all have been sick at least once in our lives, using medication to alleviate symptoms and relying on treatments for more major cases to preserve life or prolong it. There has been multiple outbreaks in the past that were usually epidemics, when a disease infects multiple countries to a large scale, such as Ebola in 2017, Zika in 2015, and SARS in 2002. The more major ones, pandemics, meaning that a disease spreads throughout the world, is being experienced now with the coronavirus. The one preceding it being H1N1, or swine flu, that occurred between 2009 and 2010. Endemics, diseases that are always present and infect many, such as the seasonal flu, are considered not as alarming. There are proper precautions when handling pandemics. The approach to a pandemic is boiled down to noticing the new disease, putting those infected or exposed in quarantine, learn more about it, and develop a solution, such as a vaccine. Pandemics are usually caused by viruses with high infection rates or bacteria that mutated the ability to do so, such as the Black Plague. Viruses are quickly mutating pathogens that are responsible for most illnesses, such as a common cold or the common flu. They behave like living organisms, but in fact are not, as they cannot fossilize and cannot survive on their own. They need a living cell in order to carry out replication, cannot create their own energy, and are not made out of cells themselves. They are more similar to highly intelligent robots or androids. However, bacteria is another story. Bacteria is a living thing and exists nearly anywhere. Infectious bacteria can cause illnesses such as strep throat, salmonella, and tuberculosis. Bacteria has the ability to replicate itself without a host cell, are larger than viruses, and they have the ability to produce their own energy. A notable infectious bacteria is Yersinia pestis. It is the cause of the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. The bubonic plague lives in fleas before being transferred to rodents such as mice, rats, and voles, which can then infect predator animals that eat them. Humans can become infected through the bacteria entering their bodies by being bitten by an infected flea or being near other infected animals or humans. Though the bubonic plague has a 30 to 60% fatality rate, noticing early warning symptoms such as swollen lymph nodes, also known as buboes, or lab testing will allow for a window of recovery. With antibiotic treatment, the body can efficiently and effectively recover. Antibiotics are usually made of penicillin, a component that weakens the bacterial cell wall and can halt bacterial replication or kill the bacteria. It prevents the last stage of a bacterium's cell wall from forming, greatly weakening it and leaving it vulnerable, and possibly have the bacteria rip open. Antibiotics usually take from 1 week to 2 weeks to complete the task and are extremely powerful. But the continued use of a certain antibiotic can lead to unforeseen consequences. The misuse and overuse of antibiotics may lead to the creation of a superbug, a bacteria that is resistant to antibiotics, evolving to counter it. Misuse may involve taking antibiotics due to the belief that they will stop a virus, taking it for usually self-fixing bacterial infections such as ear infections, and not taking antibiotics as prescribed. Superbugs can be a scary thing naturally, being infectious and immune to most forms of antibiotics, and if left untreated may lead to lethal ends. Superbugs, however, are not common. The chances of a viral pandemic are already low, especially a superbug-induced one. With good hygiene practice, such as washing hands with soap and water and sanitation procedures, along with the smart use of antibiotics, it is more of a black swan. Common superbugs, such as methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA, can be treated efficiently, even with its resistance to penicillin, amoxicillin, and methicillin. MRSA is caused by a strain of resistant skin-dwelling bacteria known as Staphylococcus aureus. If it is mild and only boils appear, one will be treated by the drainage of the boil. If entered through the bloodstream, intravenous antibiotics or IV antibiotics are to be administered. Though MRSA is resistant to many types of antibiotics, worst-case scenario antibiotics will be used from the antibiotic reserves. Becoming resistant to antibiotics gives a superbug the ability and potential to become a serious threat. With its resistance and potentially lethal effects, how will the world react to a superbug outbreak? Let's take a superbug, a carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriaceae, or CRE bacteria. This is not one, but a group of many bacteria that are resistant to carbapenem, an antibiotic used to treat the most severe of bacterial infections. CRE is usually found on contaminated surfaces of ventilators, catheters, and intravenous devices. Those in healthcare with acute injuries or using these devices are at the highest risk of contracting it, as well as those using multiple antibiotics for a prolonged amount of time. It is transferred when in direct contact of bodily fluids such as urine or blood, and it may cause infections of the blood, skin, bladder, and other parts of the body. Not only is it easily spread and has a high mortality rate, it has the ability to share its resistance to antibiotics with other bacteria directly by sharing the information in their DNA. As stated before, CRE isn't one type of bacteria, but symptoms are the same depending on where the infection is located. This can be from shortness of breath, to painful swelling of the skin, to pain when urinating. A universal symptom combo, no matter what strain of CRE one is infected by, is a fever, chills, and fatigue. However, due to many other illnesses that include fever, chills, and fatigue, a proper diagnosis is needed to be sure, including various tests and taking samples to look for body cultures.